Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on demand, sports talk for America.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
Not the one I wanted. That's good. That's more baseball with guys, isn't it? Yes. Go. Today we're going to be talking a lot of baseball during the debate and maybe possibly after the debate too. So welcome to the Mac, Jack, Doc, and James debate show. First time in a long time we've had all four guys on the show together. So I guess we'll just start it off and get it going. So I know Vladimir is right now, he's still under contract, but next year he will be up, and he's already said he's going free agency. So, in your opinion.
Yeah, Vladimir Guerrero.
Yes.
Yeah, Vladimir Putin had a lifetime deal in the Soviet Union, so Guerrero's going to be a free agent.
Right, there you go. Well, I mean, if Putin wants to be a free agent too, I guess he can. I mean, he's the president of Russia. So, anyway. Vladimir Guerrero, where is he going to? The Yankees, the Blue Jays, or the Dodgers? Doc says he has some inside information. So I want to go to him first and see what he's got.
Oh, I don't have inside information necessarily. I have the perspective of a big-time Blue Jay fan, author Andrew Forbes. I interviewed him last week on the Dr. Sem show, and Andrew Forbes said that the Blue Jays would be heartbroken if Vlad didn't re-sign with them. But Vlad has said that if he didn't have a deal by the beginning of spring training, that he wasn't going to re-sign with the Blue Jays, and he doesn't have a deal. Now, he did back off that a little bit and say that maybe, just maybe, if they make him an offer he can't refuse, he would stick around. But it looks as though he's probably going to be a free agent at the end of the year.
So, Jack, I mean, if he doesn't stay with Toronto, do you expect him to be with the Yankees, or maybe the Dodgers are getting everybody? So, does he go to the Dodgers?
If Toronto doesn't strike a deal with him before the regular season begins, they're not going to have any deal with him altogether. And if Toronto's already basically put out their best offer and they've indicated they have, either you stick with him for this year if you truly think you could win, but you have to know it's a one-year deal. You're going to lose him at the end of the year, because if you can't sign him now, you're very unlikely to sign him when he becomes a free agent, because in all likelihood, there's going to be at least one team that's going to step up and give Guerrero, the type of offer he wants. And when you're mentioning teams, you have to look at their situation at first base. The Dodgers, virtually no chance that they're going to sign Guerrero. They got Freddie Freeman at first base. What are they going to make? They're not going to make Freeman a DH. I mean, Ohtani takes up the DH spot for the most part for the Dodgers. So there's no space for Guerrero unless Freeman has a bad year and decides to suddenly retire. Situations change. Yankees could be in play, except they're not going to go the Juan Soto route again. They're not going to go anywhere near there. I think the Yankees felt dirtied by this whole Soto thing. It was out of character, the amount of money they offered. But Soto was a Yankee for the year. The fan base wanted him back in the worst way. So the Yankees went the extra few miles to try to sign Soto. It didn't work out. They're not going to pay Guerrero, I think, more money than Aaron Judge is getting, for example. I mean, they'll pay Guerrero close to $40 million a year, X amount of years. I think it would be kind of like, and as far as the Mets, let me just backtrack. Pete Alonso, if he has a great year, he's going to opt out. But chances are he might try to work something out with the Mets again, or the Mets with him. Or if Alonso doesn't have a good year, he has 1 year remaining on his deal. And so if he doesn't exercise his opt-out, the Mets are going to have to keep him 1 more year. And I'm not that sure the Mets would sign Guerrero and make Alonso a DH for the year. But that's a possibility. I think it's some surprise team that would come up that's a little antsy, like the Cubs, the Tigers. One of those teams. That's my feeling would sign Guerrero, who always come a little short of getting the elite free agents. Maybe the Phillies, who have the money to spend, decide to go after Guerrero. But I don't think he's going with, the Yankees, the Dodgers, or the Mets for that matter. I think it's going to be one of the other teams.
Well, James, the Phillies they also got Bryce Harper playing first base with a nice contract, very cheap contract for the amount of years they signed him. In fact, I think I saw he just put a tattoo of the Phillies on his arm. I don't know if the other teams can afford him. I really don't know if Detroit can afford him, or definitely the Royals couldn't afford him. So with everything they both said, I mean, where does he go?
I still think it's either he stays in Toronto, or he goes to the Yankees. Right now, the first baseman that's there, it's Paul Goldschmidt. He signed. He's like 37, I think. He signed for like a 1-year deal. So I mean, he probably can replace him. I mean, he's a 26-year-old guy. He has some really good numbers. He's going to get paid somewhere. But I was doing some research. The highest paid first baseman is Chris Bryant, I believe, for 7 years, 182. Is he gonna command $400 or $500 million for some X amount of years? That's my question is. I mean, I'm not sure. Can he get that? Is he going to get that?
I think he's going to get big money because he's only 26. He's got huge numbers. He's a great hitter. The question is, what team is going to pay him that money? I would see the Mets outbidding the Yankees again rather than the Yankees getting him. I think a lot of times. Now, listen, I'm a jaded Yankee fan at this point because the Yankees are a different organization than they were when I became a fan all those years ago. The Yankees used to get every player they want. That doesn't happen anymore. They didn't get Bryce Harper. They didn't even try for him. They didn't get Yamamoto. They didn't get Ohtani. They didn't keep Soto. So, they kept Aaron Judge because they had to, and they've gotten some pitchers. But otherwise, the Yankees, I predict, here's my big prediction. I predict whatever Vladimiro Guerrero gets, the Yankees will bid just under that amount and say, we made a great offer. We made a huge offer, but they know that it'll be an offer that he refuses, so they can say they made a huge offer. I could offer him $600 million right now. I don't have $600 million, but if I know he's going to turn it down, then I could say I offered him $600 million. That seems to be the way the Yankees operate now.
But the Soto contract situation was more of an aberration. Like I said, he was a Yankee for a year. So the Yankees were emotionally invested in Soto. to go after him. The Yankees had to bid strongly to get Soto, and the Yankees made a good enough offer to keep Soto. If Soto wanted to remain a Yankee, he could have, because the difference in the numbers between the Yankees and the Mets wasn't so great. But people forget the X factor. Even with the Alex Bregman signing with the Red Sox, the Tigers offered Bregman a lucrative deal. So that shows that they're players in the free agent market. And teams like the Cubs and the Phillies in the past have been players. And there's no reason to believe that they won't be again. I think we narrowed down too much to the obvious. The Yankees are probably going to need a first baseman. But at what price? Do they have anyone, Doc, coming from the minor leagues where they?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
And Rice, he came up last year.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Yankees are a viable option, but at what price? I got to give the Yankees a lot of credit in most cases. They're prudent in the contracts that they offer players. Like Brian Cashman said, we're not going to be drunken sailors. They could have used Alex Bregman this year, but they didn't bid on him.
Yeah.
It, just wasn't worth the price in the long run. They were using good judgment. They weren't just living in the now situation. But James does make a good point with Paul Goldschmidt. If he doesn't have a good year, but what happens? Some of these teams moving forward next year, if their first basemen have good years, what happens if Paul Goldschmidt has a bounce back year? Let's say it's a respectable year. He hits 290, hits 25 homers, knocks in 90 runs, and wants to run it back another year. The Yankees might think, sure, we'll sign him for another 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal. I mean, we have to see what unfolds this upcoming season.
Well, like Doc has said in the past, Yankees have the money. The Yankees have the money to sign anybody they really want to. They just don't want to do it. And to me, if you're going to make they went to the World Series last year, great. But if you really want to get over the top, you got to be willing to spend that money that they make. So, right, Doc? I mean, do you want to go to the World Series? Do you want to win the World Series or not?
Yes.
Mac, they signed Max Fried to a big money contract, for a pitcher. They did. What I think the Yankees' problem is? They're never ahead of the curve signing free agents. At some point, they're going to have to deal with Anthony Volpe's contract because they were too dumb to get it done when Volpe was younger a year ago. They could have signed Volpe long-term the way the Braves sign their prospects long-term when they're young, the way the Padres signed Fernando Tatis when he was a young phenom. If you know Volpe's going to be good going forward and he could be a shortstop in the future, the way the Yankees should know, you sign him very early in the process when he's affordable, but they don't do it. They wait. And if they do sign their own players, they wind up paying a lot more money.
Here's the problem, Jack. Anthony Volpe is a below average hitter. He hasn't hit in 2 years now. So I mean, he's young. He could have a big year this year, but last year he hit 209. His on-base percentage was only 283. He doesn't get on base. So he has talent. He's a good defensive shortstop, but do you want to sign that guy to 8 or 10 years?
Absolutely, because he's getting better. Doc, he's getting
better. He got worse.
No, he's not. He's getting better. This season, Anthony Volpe is going to have a really good year. And once he has that good year, the Yankees are not going to be able to sign him at the number that they're going to want to sign him, that they could have signed him at, because they didn't get ahead of the curve. You'll see he's going to have a good year this year.
Well, I hope he does.
Don't
misrepresent what I'm saying. I hope he does.
He's going to have an all-star caliber type year.
If you were running a baseball team, would you give big money to an unproven kid on the hopes that he might be really good? Because so far he hasn't been.
You're talking about $13 million a year for
I bet you cost more than that.
No. If you sign him early in the process, you could have gotten him in that range of about $13 million a year long term. That's what I mean.
But then you're stuck with him. And I don't think he's
which is
proven himself
fine.
yet.
You're going to want him. He's going to be good. I don't
We
know
don't.
if you're stuck
All right,
with him. You're
we
lucky
don't
you'll
know
have
that.
him all those years.
We don't know
I'm
that.
going to say back to Vladimir Guerrero. He is going to command a lot of money, but only based or predicated on what he does this year, because he turned down $340 million from Toronto. So that's a big thing right there. So
How many
he
years?
has to really come out and show up. Say it again.
How many years? I didn't hear that. 340 million for how many years?
I'm not sure the years, but yeah, he turned it down. They offered him money. They did offer him money. So they offered him 340. So he turned it down.
I think it was 4 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Which is a lot. It's a lot. I think that's clearly that's.
No, that wasn't 4 years. Not 340 for 4 years. That's 85 million a year, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, that wasn't for 4 years. But he can get Vladimir Guerrero probably can do substantially better than 340 million total package if I were his agent. Okay, he's probably going to get something in the $450 million range. So 340 wouldn't do it for me. Sum total. That if I were his agent, I do a study of this. I love this agent stuff, Mac. Yeah. So, but that's the thing with Toronto. You treat a guy like a free agent before he's a free agent if you want to keep him bad enough. Like even the Yankees with Soto, guys. Let me ask all of you this. Soto eventually wound up signing with what, 765 for the Mets or thereabouts, and the Yankees were over 700 million or whatever. When Soto first came to the Yankees, if the Yankees sat down with Scott Boras and they offered a deal that was $600 million, Soto would have signed that a year before free agency because it was like off the charts at the time. The longer you wait, the more you have to pay a price later on.
You were gone. Jason Dominguez. Doc, what do we do with him?
Oh, Jason Dominguez, he's going to be the left fielder. He's young, again, unproven, and I just don't know that you sign a guy who hasn't done anything yet to a big-time contract. See, the Yankees have the money that they don't have to do that. Smaller market teams do that. Teams without a lot of money, they say, oh, listen, we think this guy – it's really they're hedging their bets is what they're doing. They're saying, we think he might be great. Let's pay him a lot of money right now, and we'll keep him. The Yankees don't have to do that because they have the money that when the guy gets good, if they want to keep him, they can keep him.
But Doc, Juan Dominguez is a little different. I'm not sure he's going to be that good going forward. Hopefully he is. Anthony Volpe, if you believe in him, maybe the way I do, maybe I'm overestimating him compared to you guys in the Yankee brass. If you honestly think he's going to be outstanding, he's your guy of the future, you strike a deal extremely early with him when you can. The Padres did it with Fernando Tatis. People said $24 million a year, like 13 years. That might be a bargain for them when you see what guys are getting paid now. Even the Judge contract, $40 million a year. He has 7 years left. If Judge were a free agent today, he would get at least the 7 years, probably 8, at more than $40 million.
Maybe so, Jack. So you brought up Aaron Judge. If you were the Yankees GM, would you strongly suggest Aaron Judge doesn't play in the World Baseball Classic in 2026? James, what do you think?
Yes, if I'm a GM, I'm going to strongly suggest that he does not. I see the history here. One thing if I'm a GM, I'm always going to look at somebody's injury history. And we talk about Kawhi Leonard. He had to step away from the Olympics because he can't play 60 games in the season, let alone a few games in an Olympics. I mean, they really got to touch and go him. There's no way. You're my star premium player, and you have injury history. Yes, you've been MVP 2022, 2024, but we have championship aspirations. You're the guy that's the engine that runs. there's no way I got you playing anything extra. Look, it's kind of like the Olympics. Hey, guys go play. They go do this. It's right before the season starts. But I'd rather have you just focus on New York and not the other stuff there. It's not necessary. I'll be honest with you.
Jackie makes a great point with the injury history of Aaron Judge. And do you want him going and playing in 2026 and possibly get injured again?
Aaron Judge, when you say injury history, I don't want to see stats. One time he was hit in the hand by a pitch and he was out. That's not an injury history. So let's do away with the World Baseball Classic, because all the teams can tell all their star players stay home. And so none of them are going to go. So what are we going to do? We're going to have a bunch of backups, okay, a bunch of minor leaguers playing in the Olympics and in the World Baseball Classic. And the same with the Olympics. None of the NBA players should go either because of possible injury. It's getting ludicrous. Now we're here. Keep Judge in right field instead of center. We want to save his legs. You especially, Doc, if you have that view, and I'm not saying you do, I would be surprised being a runner, saving the legs from right field to center field. If anything, it's good, the extra running, But how much are we going to baby these guys? It's not the NFL where they're putting hard hits on someone. It's not like a quarterback where we're telling him to hit the deck so he doesn't get hit. That we understand. It's not like the Pro Bowl where we don't want a guy in a contact sport. Come on. So let's do away with the World Baseball Classic because none of the star players should play in it.
Doc, I don't think you're
the World Baseball Classic. That I agree with Jack on that part of it. Okay. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's silly. I think it distracts from spring training. I think it takes players out of the regular routines. The Mets a couple of years ago lost their closer. A couple of years before that, Mark Teixeira got hurt down there, and it didn't help the Yankees. If I'm the Yankees and Aaron Judge wants to go play in there, if I'm any team, I put in the contract that if you go play in the World Baseball Classic, your contract's null and void. I don't want my star player playing in some exhibition game that nobody cares about. No, who cares? If you own the Yankees, you want to say like, hey, Aaron Judge was on the American team when they won the World Baseball Classic in March, but we didn't win the World Series. Or would you rather say we won the World Series and we didn't win the World Baseball Classic? I challenge you all. Tell me the winners of each of the World Baseball Classics in order since it began. Nobody can because nobody knows because nobody cares. So, yes, I do not want Aaron Judge playing in the World Baseball Classic.
What about a player, especially from other countries, and even the United States, who has a lot of pride in their nation? Don't tell me it didn't mean a lot to Ohtani last year. He struck out Mike Trout to close out the baseball classic. They played the USA. Don't tell me it wouldn't have meant a lot to Mike Trout, who's only been to one playoffs in his 13 years as an Angel. It's been pathetic. A great talent like Mike Trout not able to get to the postseason. It would have meant so much to him had they won that final game. He would have felt some type as a champion in some way, as opposed to his career as an Angel. I went to one of the World Baseball Classics games a couple of years ago, and Salvador Perez was catching a potential Hall of Famer. I think he will be a Hall of Famer, but he was catching that game, Kansas City Royal catcher. And, guys get hurt. Edwin Diaz got hurt in the World Baseball Classic. So I understand there's the injury risk. But if we're going to have the World Baseball Classic, either we do it right or we don't have it at all. Either
I don't disagree. We shouldn't have it at all.
We don't have it. Okay, that's maybe a better debate, whether we should have it at all because it gets guys out of their routine. But listen, if guys are playing ball, how are they that much out of their routine? I mean, they're not lying by the pool and just showing up for the game. You have to assume that they're working out and that it's keeping them in sync for the season.
I don't think there's any proof that happens.
I think the situation here, the question is, we're talking about Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is not the age of Vladimir Guerrero. Aaron Judge is like on the wrong side of 30, going to a classic. So he's probably more prone to be injured. Any game. So I would prefer that you rather not play any game that's not a risk, that doesn't mean anything. I think I agree with you, Jack, that the game probably does mean something. It does mean something to a lot of younger players. But for me, in this instance, it's more about the age of a player, and you're trying to preserve as great as you can, as much you can in a player like that with his talent that might be on the wing on the. I hate to say twilight because he just come off a 58 homer MVP season, so it's just a matter of how much longer can he get? How much more can you get out of him? Because it began to drop off a little bit.
You can push your body hard when you're in your 30s. Come on,
but he's 6'7", 200+ pounds.
You're saying they got 1 foot into retirement. You can push hard physically when you're 35 the same way you can when you're 25. It's how you take care of yourself. What slows down when you get older? Primarily speed. You run just a tiny bit slower. Like you look at sprinters in the Olympics. You're not going to have someone usually winning the 100 meters who's 37, 38 years old. But they're not. But they can still run pretty quick, and their injury risk isn't any greater because they're older.
Hand-eye coordination doesn't wane a little bit either.
I think it's just physically you just slow down just a tiny bit. That's what I feel it is. The way I see it. Even look at your favorite sport, football. Quarterbacks, okay, running quarterbacks when they're younger, they lose a little step as they get older as far as being mobile, running around, but they're still mobile. And they're not on the greater injury risk because they're older.
But he's not a pitcher; he's an outfielder. So it's still different, right? I would say that's a big deal. I would say.
But Doc is right in this sense. The World Baseball Classic hasn't really caught on. Maybe in the other countries it means a lot. In the United States, I don't think it means much. Maybe the night of the game, if the USA's in the finals, everyone's excited. But if they lose, the country's not in mourning the next day like they might be in another country.
Okay. Good morning, Richard Sherlock. You just joined us as we're debating whether teams should let their stars play in the World Baseball Classic with the threat of injury. So, that's what we've been debating recently here. So, I guess we can move on to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron, which team signs Aaron Rodgers, Pittsburgh or Vegas? Jack has always thought it's going to be Pittsburgh. There could be other teams waiting in reigns too, and I've also heard the Rams. So it could be one of a few teams. Maybe he retires. We don't know yet. So since it's your fanboy Aaron Rodgers, Jack, what do you think? Where do you think Aaron Rodgers goes?
Now I got to give myself a lot of credit because last season, early on, when it appeared things weren't working out with the Jets, I said right off the bat, he's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler next season. Now, it might not happen yet, so I might not look good in the law when all is said and done. But I could just see the handwriting on the wall with Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. I couldn't see them going forward with those guys for long and it not working out with the Jets. Yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Where's Aaron Rodgers going to want to go to? That's what you guys have to think. If you're Aaron Rodgers, where would you want to go to and where there job openings, to go to? And what type of coach would you want to play for? Who gives you the best chance to win? I think winning means a lot to Aaron Rodgers. Now, I think he's thinking of his legacy. I really do. And, win another Super Bowl and then maybe make the Jets look a little bad. Like, why did you move on from me? I put up some good stats at the end of the year. He could throw that back. I think it's going to be Pittsburgh. I think they give him a much better chance to win than the Raiders, the Titans. I don't see the Giants going for Aaron Rodgers. I don't see him being part of their culture. I could see him playing for Mike Tomlin, at Pittsburgh, because Tomlin has coached forever in the NFL, and he coached when Rodgers was a superstar. And maybe he's thinking, Rodgers is better than Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, and I'm going to roll with him next year.
Doc, you're sort of a semi-Jet fan. I mean, you follow them. Aaron Rodgers, Pittsburgh Steelers aren't going to win the Super Bowl next year. I'll tell you that straight out. That's not going to happen. The Raiders, as Jack said, they're rebuilding. I don't know if he wants to be part of that. The Rams would be an option if Stafford decides to leave, which he's got to do that before Aaron Rodgers moves over there. Who do you think that Aaron Rodgers would go and play with if he could?
Once upon a time, there was a Green Bay Packer quarterback who won a Super Bowl, who had a bad year, and who the Jets signed to be their savior, and it didn't work. And that quarterback went to the Minnesota Vikings after leaving the Jets. That was Brett Favre. There was another Green Bay Packer quarterback who had a bad year, who had won a Super Bowl, who went to the Jets, and it didn't work out. That quarterback's name is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers will be going and playing for the Minnesota Vikings. That's where he will go. Who's their quarterback now? Sam Darnold? I mean, come on. I don't even know if Darnold signed. So he's going to the Vikings. If he plays at all, that's where he's going.
Richard, who was a Minnesota Viking, said, "No way, gentlemen, that's not happening." But Doc, I think you got a valid point. I mean, Brett Favre almost
Super Bowl contender.
Can I just add one thing before James goes to? You have to look over your shoulder if you're a veteran quarterback in Rodgers' situation. If he went to the Steelers, he doesn't have to look over his shoulder. They have no one in waiting to take over. If he goes to the Vikings, he knows he's on the clock because they're grooming J.J. McCarthy, who they drafted in the first round. So is he going to want to look over his shoulder with Minnesota? Or is he going to want to go to Pittsburgh, where he knows if he has a good year, they're not going to replace him? They have no one in waiting.
He's already on the clock. He's 87 years old. He's already on the clock. He knows he doesn't have a lot of time. So if you're building a legacy, why not then be the guy, comes in? What's his name? Kurt Warner do that with the Giants. He came in and he mentored Eli Manning. And, that was part of his whole legacy, that he helped Manning become great. Rodgers could put that little feather in his cap. Look what I did at the end of my career.
And then Warner went out to win a Super Bowl. James, this is interesting to me. I listen, I think Doc has a valid point. You were there, you're a Saints fan, when a great championship with Rodgers, maybe they're one play away from going to the Super Bowl. If Rodgers goes there, I think Rodgers is as talented as Brett Favre, maybe a little bit more problem in the locker room. I don't know, but sounds like a good place for me.
Just like Doc and yourself and Jack, I thought this as well. I thought that potentially he could follow in Brett Favre's footsteps. He was drafted behind him. He played for Green Bay. He went to New York and played there 2 seasons, and maybe he can follow that same story and have some similar success. It looks like it's in the cards because Minnesota has this great team right now, and it looks like the main situation, or the main one ticket away, is by having that quarterback. I still think it's probably Sam Darnold. I'll be honest with you. I don't think Kevin O'Connell wants that headache there. Because there is a lot of baggage that comes with Aaron Rodgers. So, and regardless of the last 2 games with Sam Darnold and how they turned out, I think they still like Sam Darnold, and they still probably can afford him to be there as their quarterback for the foreseeable future, even with the makings of McCarthy, who hadn't really shown anything besides being a game manager in Michigan. So we don't know what he's going to be like in the pros yet. So right now, that team is built to win now. I don't think McCarthy is in a situation to win now. I think they still can win with Sam Darnold. I think Aaron Rodgers, though, with the team that you mentioned, the cap space, we're talking about Steelers having 60 million in cap space versus the Raiders having 98 to 101 in cap space. They can offer Rodgers a lot of money to come in, and they can get help to come in. His guy followed him to New York, and Devontae Adams. Why not follow him back to the Raiders and come back and play with them there? And they can also add in the draft maybe a guy like Ashton Genty as a running back. Because look, they're gonna be running it. You got Pete Carroll there. You know they're gonna be running the ball. They're not asking Aaron to do a whole bunch, so they're gonna get a runner, maybe a generational talent in Ashton Genty at round 6. At the 6th overall pick. You can grab him there, build your team up, and I think Aaron Rodgers goes out west to the Raiders.
I have another scenario that no one has mentioned. I was the first one who ever mentioned the Steelers, media, whatever. But if he doesn't go to the Steelers, this scenario I could see unfolding. Aaron Rodgers isn't on any team at the start of the season. He keeps in shape. One of the elite quarterbacks goes down with an injury. Aaron Rodgers is available. It could even be a team. I don't wish this on anyone. I'm just throwing a team for the heck of it, like the Buffalo Bills, and Aaron Rodgers will be better than virtually any, if not all, backup quarterbacks in the NFL. So some elite team, they lose their starting quarterback for the year. It's the 4th week of the season. They reach out to Aaron Rodgers, and he jumps on board because he's a veteran. He would only need a couple of weeks to get ready, or they would get the system, geared to what he wants in the short term at least. So I could see that scenario, him not actually having a team at the start of the year. Because you see him playing for a team like the Tennessee Titans who aren't going anywhere. I don't see him wanting that. I don't see them wanting that. So I think it could be an established playoff team who he could go to during the year, not be on any team at the start of the year. I could see that scenario as well.
Well,
It would have to be.
Josh Allen is a very durable quarterback. He'll play with a broken
I'm
hand.
giving an example, Mac.
Right.
An example.
But I'm just saying, Jack. I'm just saying that Aaron Rodgers still has baggage. Do the Buffalo Bills want to put up with his baggage? I don't know.
What baggage does he have? Come on, it's a media stuff. He doesn't have all this.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about, Jack? He comes in, he tries to run the program himself. He gets mad. He throws players under the bus. He's had a lot of baggage.
He's played how many years? So how's he lasted all these years in the league and has forged a Hall of Fame career? Right, the Jets gave him all this power, and they voluntarily did it. It's got to be pointed out. And it didn't work out. They got him all his weapons at his disposal, everything he wanted. They did it. They did it. They let Aaron Rodgers run things to an extent. He knows he's not going to go elsewhere and he's going to run things. They're going to tell him this is the way it has to be. And, and he'll conform to it. He'll have suggestions. He'll want Devontae Adams. He'll tell them, get me Devontae Adams. It would help out a lot. He has ideas. Is it such a bad thing to listen to some of his ideas?
If it hasn't shown any success, sorry, go ahead.
You go.
If it hasn't shown any success in the past few years and shown a lot of the baggage has come up more so in the waning of his talents. So I'm not saying, 80% of Aaron Rodgers talent-wise is still better than the league, but better than most of the league. But at the same time, you're starting to see more stuff come out about who this guy is character-wise. And so that just makes it teams less tolerable to deal with that type of thing because they don't want to deal with your antics and stuff like that. If you're not going to be 2010 Aaron Rodgers or 2011 Aaron Rodgers, is no longer there.
100% agree. And there's also the stuff with the Pat McAfee show, and he says stuff that then residuates, there's residual problems into the locker room because he said this about that player. He said about this guy. And listen, you make a great point, Jack, that he lasted in the league a long time. And I wanted the Jets to get Aaron Rodgers, and I wanted him to be great. And I thought it was going to be fun. It wasn't. And there was a lot of chaos around the Jets. They didn't have success. He didn't play particularly well. And if you have a superstar and they're playing at a superstar level and they're a pain in the neck, well, you go, he's a pain in the neck, but look how great he is. But if you have a guy who's a mediocre quarterback who hasn't done anything in a couple of years, who was injured and missed the whole year 2 years ago and came back and his team wasn't any good this year, I think you're going to be less tolerant of putting up with that stuff.
Yeah, your point is well taken, but keep this in mind. For the most part, he was liked in the locker room. The players aren't bad-mouthing him on the way out, not even anonymously. He had a couple incidents. I didn't like with Mike Williams, his receiver, who, didn't catch a ball. He blamed them for not running the pattern the wrong way. That was wrong as a quarterback. That was outright wrong. And it bothered me, and Garrett Wilson isn't happy the way he was maybe utilized. Yeah. But that's more, but A.J. Brown wasn't happy with Jalen Hurts early in the year, and they won the Super Bowl. These things happen on teams. I don't hear past members of the coaching staff with the Jets talking anonymously.
Yeah, two different quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers and Jalen Hurts. They're two different quarterbacks.
And two unhappy receivers. A.J. Brown was unhappy with Jalen Hurts to an extent, and Garrett Wilson was unhappy with Aaron Rodgers and the way they were being utilized.
Garrett Wilson said if Aaron Rodgers is coming back, he's not going to stay. That's what Garrett Wilson said.
Also winning covers all that. If there's any issues with problems, if you're winning, people don't care. But if you're losing, all that stuff begins to unravel and come out, which it did for the Jets, unfortunately.
Yes. So let's get to Team USA versus Canada, the championship. Of course, Canada did end up coming back and winning that 3-2 in overtime. Sparked a lot of interest, I think, with non-hockey fans, not just hockey fans. Some people said it reminded them of Lake Placid with the U.S. team versus Russia. In fact, I just read today there was 9.3 million people that watched this game, as opposed to baseball, which is doing about 7.2 million. So, Doc, I know you. Well, you do. I think you did go to a hockey game with your nephew or something like that. What were your thoughts about the hockey, the USA versus Canada championship game?
Yeah, so I think it was a big deal. I think a lot of people tuned in. You saw a lot of people talking about it. It got a lot of legs. I didn't watch because I don't really care about hockey, and I don't get into gimmicks, and I'm too busy to sit there and watch a sport that I couldn't care less about. But that being said, I think it did bring a lot of interest. And here's the example. I went out to lunch with a friend the other day, the day of the game, and as the waitress was serving us, she, out of the blue, there was nothing about either of us that said hockey. Nobody had a hat on or a logo or anything like that. She just started talking about the hockey game and the fights and the battle, and nobody, the national anthem, and nobody doesn't puts down my national anthem and all this kind of stuff. And I only had an ancillary knowledge of any of that. But I'm like, wow, if a random waitress in a random restaurant is talking about this thing, this is a topic that's out there and people are into it. So yes, did it revive interest, or did it create some interest in hockey? I think it did. Absolutely.
Jack, you watched the Dream Team, not Dream Team, but the hockey versus Russia, as I did at Lake Placid. Did it remind you somewhat of that, the championship?
It did. It's an event. But with that said, it was an event. The USA, Canada, and I think it started with the national anthem. It got our emotions going, where the Canadian fans were extremely rude, and where their behavior was completely unacceptable. And like I said on our past show, kudos to the fans at Boston who didn't boo the Canadian national anthem, who for the most part respected the Canadian national anthem, unlike the Canadian people who booed the USA national anthem. And yeah, but I watched part of most of the game, you could say. I got to sleep a little earlier. I wasn't up at the end of the game because I had to do the Mac and Jack show. And good thing I didn't try to stay up because it went into overtime. And unlike baseball or football where they play continuously, hockey has an intermission before one overtime period. And then if there's a second overtime period, they have another intermission before that. So you're really up a long time. To me, it was an event. I don't know how you guys feel about hockey, but it's always referred to as one of the four major sports, and I don't want to do that anymore. Hockey's a great, great sport, but it's kind of a little different because I think most baseball fans, they like football. Maybe they like basketball. I think the same with basketball and football fans. Those three sports are intertwined, but hockey's always on the outside. And I get the feeling James, you like football, baseball, and the NBA, but hockey's probably a little on the side. And there's nothing wrong with that. Other sports on the side. I love track and field, it's on the side. I love boxing, it's on the side. And that's how I look at hockey, even though it's a team sport. I don't think it's making new fans. Either you're a hockey fan or you're not. As an event, we'll tune into anything that's an event. Anything. And hockey was in the news with the USA. It did remind us a little of Lake Placid. So created interest for the week and a half. But beyond that, I don't think there's a carryover.
You want to respond, or you had a question for me, Mac?
No, Jack asked.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, look, in regards to that, I grew up in very poor neighborhoods when I was young. There were no ice rinks around. And most of the kids that I knew didn't know much about hockey except Mario Lemieux or Wayne Gretzky. That was because they were big marquee names. That's who you knew. You wore the hats, you wore the Kings hats, because it looked good on you with your black shirt and everything like that. But other than that, I knew nothing about hockey, and nor did I have any interest in playing. But the question here is, does it garner any interest from non-hockey fans? I mean, it was interesting what Doc said about the waitress. But who knows if she was actually a hockey fan or not? But I think certain things we talk about climate, political climate, current state of affairs, both USA versus Canada. Because even the prime minister, when they won, he had a statement saying, "You can't take our country, nor can you take our game." That's pretty interesting for him to say that. And this, these young kids are very political now. Everybody votes too as well. And, a lot of people either on one side, left or far right, and DEI and all this stuff like that. So maybe hockey does come into play. Maybe it does bring a new element and bringing fans, especially what happened here. What happened with the booing of the national anthem. People are very, if you look back, we go all the way back to the Olympics. We might have had our issues in this country, but a lot of times sports, comedy, different things like that brought people together because you taught us to laugh at each other, laugh at ourselves. Like it was us against Germany, Hitler, the Nazis, when Jesse Owens went and beat out the people.
We're going somewhere
going in
else.
Different directions here.
Yes. Let's try to keep
this. But my point in bringing that up is I got a point. My point in bringing it up is that I think that viewers, the way the climate is now with younger people, I think sports, if it's going this direction, it may bring people into some other viewers into the sport. But again, to answer your question, Jack, I just didn't have like Doc. I don't have any interest in it, but it did turn my head seeing those types of things when I saw that. So it caught my eye. Let's just say that.
Here, I'll tell you guys a funny story about booing national anthems. I thought I was doing something really, really great. This was like 1992, 93, 91, something like that. The Yankees were playing the Blue Jays, and the Blue Jays came into Yankee Stadium, and the Yankee fans booed the Canadian national anthem. And I was Not happy about that. And so I went home and I wrote a letter to the Prime Minister of Canada. Whatever the person's name was, Campbell, I think was the last name at the time. I wrote this letter. I'm a Yankee fan. I was in the stadium. I was respectful. I think it's a shame that the Yankee fans who don't represent me or New York or the Yankees would boo the Canadian national anthem. And I just want you to know that I stood and I support your country. Oh, this, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I figured they're going to get this letter and they're going to welcome me to Ottawa. And I'm going to be sitting at the Prime Minister at a Blue Jay game in the box or something like, look at this great American. He supports their friends to the north. I got a form letter in return. Thank you for reaching the Prime Minister. So anyway, it's not the first time a country or fans have booed a national anthem of another country.
True. That's very true. That's very true. So the Yankees now can have trimmed beards. You know, at one time the Yankees didn't have their names on their jerseys, and you know there were certain reasons why the Yankees stood out from other teams. So, Doc, you agree with the trimmed beards? Yes? No?
In one regard, I couldn't care less, but in the because you know my sons have beards. Like I don't care if somebody has a beard. I don't look down on somebody if they have a beard. The Yankees used to set themselves apart as something different. Yes. The pinstripes. I understand, you know, they get $25 million a year to have that star insurance patch on there, but there would have been a time when you wouldn't have ever put an advertisement on the Yankee uniform. I get it. I liked it. And I think what we're going to see now, though, is someone's going to now push the limit. Oh, I can have a beard. Okay, but it has to be neatly trimmed. Well, what does that mean? Can it be down to here if it's neat? If it's scraggly, well, that's not neatly trimmed. But if it's down to here, is that neatly trimmed? And there's going to be guys who push the envelope. I thought the Red Sox all those years ago in 08 or whatever, when they won the World Series with all that hair, and I think they looked terrible. It was just ugly to watch. I couldn't care less if somebody has a beard or not. I just thought it was ugly to watch. And we'll see that now at the Yankees. They used to do things, lots of different things, to set themselves apart as a different organization, and slowly they're letting all that erode, including winning World Series. Not that the two have anything to do with one another, but the tradition used to be they win World Series every year. They don't do that either. So,
yeah, Doc had to slap that in there at the end. James, you wear a beard. It looks kind of neat and trim. I don't know. I can't see it really good from here. But I mean, what do you think? I mean, do you think it's not a big deal, or do you think it is a big deal?
I mean, when you had me study or research some of these guys like the Oakland A's when they had their mustaches, these guys were winning championships then, though. You know, they were winning. I hear Doc what he said about that. I think neat and trim, it should be, I don't know if they gave, what type of stipulations they gave. Maybe they just mentioned how thick or the inch that you can grow it out to. Maybe should it just be on your face and you can have it lined up? If that's what neat and trim means, then I don't see any problem with that. If it's just here, but I kind of agree. I wouldn't want it out here. I think you have to give specific details and specifications on what neat and trim means. And because I mean, just again, facial hair is something that I've had for a while. When I was in the military, you couldn't have none of this, and I was a reservist. I would grow it in between my visits, so I like having facial hair. So I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of those guys probably want it. They haven't had it. That's for them to say you can go ahead and have it. It must have been something rumbling for a while internally in the organization. But if it's just on the face, I think that's about it. I wouldn't want it out here either.
I don't think Jack ever had a beard in his life. I think he's always.
I did.
Oh.
Once I tried it. Yeah, big beard, mustache. Yeah. I
Really?
actually did. It was weird. Like, it went back this road with the Yankees a while ago. When the Yankees had Oscar Gamble, he had a big head of hair. He outfielded, and as soon as they traded him away, he grew the hair out defiant. You're living in a different era. I pride myself on not being one of these old timers that live in the past. We're living in a different world now. I mean, what is the big deal? Someone has long hair, beard. You'd hope they have enough pride in themselves to be groomed neatly, not to look like a slob. Even a dress code, they used to make the players, they might still do certain teams, I'm not sure, dress up in a suit and tie. Imagine taking a cross-country flight and you have to be in a suit and tie, how uncomfortable that is, opposed to being in a sweatsuit, just being relaxed. I think we're living in a different world. I think the best thing to do is have a player council, which a lot of teams have, and have good leadership on that player council. And the owner communicates with the council saying, look, we'd like the players to look a certain way. What do the players think? What can you guys be comfortable with? Dress code, grooming. Let's put our heads together and work something out. I don't think to force it down players' throats. You have to shave your beard, your hair, this and that. But with that said, with the amount of money these athletes are getting paid, I mean, I'd shave my head off to get that multi-million-dollar contract.
Okay, so
my hair, did I say hair? The little hair I have, I would shave off though completely.
So ESPN not carrying the MLB. No Monday night baseball, no Sunday night baseball. I guess the locals are still going to be carrying them. How much does this hurt baseball, Doc?
I don't know. I don't know if I saw that all come out yesterday. I'm not sure how much that's going to impact. A lot of these times they say we're not going to have a deal and then they make a deal. ESPN has baseball through this year, and they're saying going forward after this year, they're not going to. Real quickly, Richard's asking for an update on my Civil War book. Volume 1 of West Point at Gettysburg is coming out this year. I just talked to the publisher on Thursday, and we're just working through the edits, and so that should be coming. So stay tuned.
Amazing stuff. I didn't know you're working on a Civil War book. Wow. Yeah, you're diversified, Doc. I mean, I don't know about James, but Mac and myself are one-dimensional, just sports. That's all Mac and myself ever talk about is sports. We never talk about anything else.
Well, you don't want to talk about anything else.
I love American history. I'll be the first to purchase your book when it comes out.
Well, you don't let me talk about other things. I want to talk about other things. You're like, oh, we're here to talk sports. I mean, I know a lot about music. I know a lot about sports. I know a lot about a lot of stuff. But Jack won't let me say it. So, without arguing. Anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in. That's the top of the show. Appreciate all the comments, views, and hopefully shares later on. Remember, if you're watching us on Roku, go there and channel search National Streaming Sports, and you'll be added to our audience. So have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow on the